Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Dirt Trail Running Podcast. I'm Coach Lindsay,
And I'm Coach Loretta.
and we are here today to chat about lots of things. The Hennepin 100 is just close to wrapping up, so we want to touch on that too. We want to talk to you about coaching and any questions that we've kind of heard over the last couple of weeks from people that we coach or others, and kind of give you an insight to what we like to do and kind of what works best for people. And then we want to also talk about Lily, who is about to run her fifth of the series of the Slam, correct?
Yep, number 5.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that since she's not here with us, and then we can go.
Yep. So we've had a series. Just in case you haven't listened, you can go back and watch the last few episodes with Lily Medina. It's an athlete that I've coached for probably 3.5 years. And this year she's taking on the Midwest Super Slam, which is 5 races in about 4.5 months. Last I checked, she was first in the standings for men and women overall. Yay, Lily.
So
And
good.
she's on to her fifth race, which will be this coming weekend, Indiana Trail 100, which will wrap up the series.
Awesome. So good. So this is the last one. And what's this course like? I know we asked her last time, but it's been a couple
Yeah,
weeks.
I think it's a little bit less technical than the course that she did at Hallucination. So I think it's going to be a little bit faster, and I've been told it's a little bit more runnable. So
Okay.
I think she's looking forward to that. And yeah,
Good. Awesome. So of course we'll talk to her after her experience, but I'm sure she's ready to get this done. Most people don't run 500s in their lifetime,
right.
much less in a summer, essentially. So
Exactly.
yeah, but she's done so well, and her leading the standings is really cool. How many people are left in the challenge?
Oh, geez. I think I'm gonna say maybe 7. I'm not
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
I've seen the standings as well on Facebook at one point, but I forget how many started it. But I don't think everyone that
Not
started it is.
left. No.
Yeah, that's so awesome, and she's doing incredibly well, and she's so important to the community and always involved in everything too. So it's fun to see her out in front there.
Right. She actually spent her weekend at Hennepin running an aid station, so she's probably there now. I
Yeah.
think she's famous for, I think it's tacos on the trail.
Awesome.
Yeah, from her on Thursday. She's like, "Can I skip my long run Saturday because I'm going to be at the race?" Lily never
Oh
asks
my.
to skip a long run, but of course she could skip a long run. She's more than ready for Indiana Trail.
Yeah, I think she's had months of long runs leading up to Indiana. Awesome. Which aid station was she manning?
I don't know. I think it's called Lily's aid station. I'm not sure. Remember what number?
I love that. And anyone that hasn't been to Hennepin, it's such a fun race. Michelle from Ornery Mule puts it on. And it's just one that like brings out so many people. It's I would say probably the biggest race in the Midwest for 150
Maybe. I'm not sure.
numbers wise. Yeah.
Tons in there. They're both pretty big races.
Yeah, it's such a good environment. It's, so encouraging. The aid stations are great. Like we were mentioning, 10 Junk Miles puts on a aid station there as well. One of the big aid stations crossing one of the bridges there. And it's just a really good community. And so anyone that hasn't done Hennepin, it sells out and there's always a wait list. So definitely put it on the list. But I had a couple athletes in it. Loretta had a couple athletes in it. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the coaching process during a race while we're at it, since
Right.
we've been doing this for about 24 hours now with Hennepin.
Right.
Kind of give your experience with your athletes that you coached doing Hennepin.
Yeah, sure. So it's funny. I love Hennepin weekend for one. I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of a race that's near and dear to my heart because it was my very first 100. So I love
Right.
it. I love the vibe there. I've been back. Like you said, aid stations are amazing, but life in a coach of the coach, right? So on weekends where I have people racing, I am busy the whole week
Yeah.
responding to text, checking the tracker, checking sometimes with aid station people to ask if my people have been through, because the tracker might not
Right.
be as many spots or whatever. So I kind of know what's going on. So I always tell my athletes, give your crew my phone number so that they can text me if you need any support in, kind of problem solving, adapting, throughout the race. Because as you know, in a 100 or 50 mile race, lots of things can happen, or 50K. You're out there a long time, and what you might have went in with a plan might not work on that day. And so you need
Right.
tweaking. So I was actually exhausted by the end of the day when my athletes finished their 50. So congratulations to Sharina and Dawn finishing their first 50-mile race, which was really exciting. But I was constantly refreshing the tracker, checking what's going on, reaching out, talking to their both of their husbands, for their crew, and helping them. And it's I also learn a lot as a coach during these races
Mhm.
when I'm supporting athletes, working with crew too, because having people that aren't as familiar to ultra racing or to crewing is interesting too, to be able to help them try to, support them through. And I think also the other dynamic comes in is if your crew is your spouse, sometimes that can
Oh.
be good and sometimes it's not. So, so
Yes.
but yeah, so I spent a lot of time doing that yesterday. A few phone calls, lots of texts.
Yeah.
With heat yesterday, it made it for a really challenging day. Both my athletes come from the South, so they were quite heat adapted, but still, when you're out in this the sun for so many hours and working for so many hours, you're bound to get a little bit overheated and balancing out in nutrition and electrolytes and kind of going
Yeah.
that. So I guess some of the things that I had to problem solve through was they had a really solid cooling plan going in, and
Sure.
I think they stuck to that. They started icing early. They had ice bandanas. I think they had ice hats. They were doing a really good job. Their husbands were doing a good job of keeping them cool. I
Great.
remind sometimes like when they come in, like soak them down, like get them cooled.
Yeah.
You know, how about
Yep.
did you have any heat advice that you had to give?
Oh my gosh, yes. So one of my athletes was having stomach issues, and they normally do. So we knew it was going to be an issue going into this 100, but we also knew he's so capable of running, honestly, a sub 20, but we were aiming for that sub 24 goal. And, we were like, the stomach's going to be the issue here. Like, we've got to figure it out. So I was at work yesterday and, refreshing every 2 minutes on all my athletes running. And I actually get a call from him, and I'm like, okay, good. This is good that he's reaching out, because some people, like, we tell them, please reach out, please reach out. And some people use it and some people don't. But he definitely called. And so I called him back, and he was running and he's answering. And I thought I was going to be his crew, because I did give the crew my phone number. But we had a game plan, and I essentially said we've got to start, because he couldn't hold anything down. So I'm like, we've got to start getting, like, don't try and fix the problem all at once. We've got to start small.
Yeah,
I said get rid of the cold liquid, because he was doing a lot of cold liquid, and as you know, like, sometimes that takes your body a lot more effort to cool the water back down to body temperature, and it can upset the stomach. So I said, get rid of anything cold right now. I know you're hot, but put ice on you and sip just room temperature water. Like, let's start there. And then if you can start holding that down, maybe try a few chips. Like, and he was getting close to that, like the big aid station there, the 50 mark. I said, start with some chips. Like, let's start small. And then he made a fantastic comeback and got a sub 24.
it's
So
awesome.
super proud of him. Yeah, and I was messaging with him this morning as well, and he said he worked so hard to turn it around, and that was so nice to hear, because sometimes, running 100, like, you start dealing with issues and it's just a snowball. Like,
When it's so hot, my biggest advice too yesterday was just be patient. The sun is
yeah.
going to go down, it's going to cool off. You just have to get through these hot hours and you can do that.
Mhm.
Whether it's taking a minute to breathe and reset,
Yep.
whether it's slowing down a little bit, there's
Yeah.
things you can do before it's time to call it, right? And so
Right.
that was obviously sometimes we just have to call a race, but sometimes it
Mhm.
just takes a little bit of reset and cooling down a little bit,
Right.
yourself back out there. That
Yeah.
was some of the things I was dealing with too, is some nausea. When you get into these hot races, oftentimes our stomachs start having a little bit of problems taking in the food, the fueling. We're overheated. We don't feel like eating. That's hard. So, I was talking with the crew and giving them some ideas for things that might go down a little bit easier just to get calories
Yeah.
in. Because when I started hearing that she was getting nauseous, I'm like, we need to get her
Right.
working, because when your gut stops working, it's really hard to get it going.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know she's not going to like this because food's not going to sound good to her right now. We can get food back in her. We can get rid of this nausea. And so I
Mhm.
had suggested like the little mandarin cups or the peaches, something that would just
Yeah. So good.
easy. And he was able to find dish of I guess little cut up oranges and bananas and got her
Yeah.
some pop, and she ended up like 15 minutes later saying the food worked great. And she was back
Oh,
in like 30 minutes before that. I think she was probably down at the bottom, right?
right.
Out of energy,
Exactly.
calories, and really struggling. And I think that that's
Yeah.
something that's super important for people that are listening to think about, is that we practice these things all the time in our training. These people had their nutrition dialed in, no problems on training runs. Everything was
Yeah.
going really smooth. And then comes race day, and it's a lot longer time out there. Heat can make that factor even more difficult. So I think the key
Right.
is, again, we say this a lot, but being adaptable, coming up with a plan that can be versatile, and you can swap things out if things aren't
Yeah.
working, and being patient with that, and like you
Yeah.
said earlier, like they're not trying to fix it all at once. I always say, like, one variable, change one variable, give it about 15 minutes, and if you don't
Right.
change, then you need to change a different variable. From my personal experience, if I'm out there and I'm struggling and I'm trying to decide whether I need more water or I need more sodium, like which is it? Am I
Right. Which way to go?
my electrolytes off? I'll try one of those, and whichever one it is, it changes almost instantly. It seems like I'm like,
Right.
hey, I'm good again, so
Yeah. Yeah. And for myself, I mean, everyone's so different, but if I'm kind of at a loss of what to do, I like to take a water reset. I'm like, let's just get some water in me and
that,
see if that does the trick. And sometimes it does settle the stomach to not shove a lot more electrolytes in it or whatever. And you might be needing that, but sometimes a water reset kind of chills everything out for a minute. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm at ground zero. Let's start adding things back in.
yep.
But yeah, it's so, the heat really can wreak havoc on your gut, along with other things too. And I know you had a plan with your athletes going in, and I'm sure it was similar to mine where we just had to adapt. Like, we took that sub 20 goal and we're like, okay, let's realistically start at a sub 24-hour goal. Like, the weather's not going to be super favorable. Like, if you're feeling good the second half, go for it. But with each of my athletes that was running, we had a very, very conservative approach to the daytime.
Mhm.
We slowed that pace way down. I made every one of them do a run walk. Like, even if you can run a 7-minute mile for 30 miles, I said, don't do it. We're going to do a run walk from the early point of the day
Yep.
and then see what happens on the back end. So, having a strategy when it's hot and just kind of being at peace and accepting that your PR might not happen that day. You can't PR every race. We've talked about that before. You just have to, like, finishing and having a strong race is much more important than going out and blowing up by mile
I,
50.
I agree. And when you're thinking about the strategy, I always like to talk about, the weather's going to change throughout the day, right? So you're going to start off the morning and it's probably going to be a little bit cooler, and then it's going to heat up that midday, and then it's going to cool back down. So you can kind of work your strategy around that too. So maybe it's a
Right.
little bit faster, maybe 5 or 10 seconds a mile faster early, and then
Right.
when that heat comes and you're starting to move slow, you're still going to be on pace. You're still going to be just fine. And when that sun goes down, hopefully you've saved enough that you can, pick that pace back up. And also,
Right.
I did have a question again, right before, like, should I start running? Should I start the run walk right from the beginning? And I said, absolutely. I start it right from the beginning. That's your plan for
Yeah.
today, and stick with it all day long.
Yeah.
And so that you're not feeling like you're running or walking because you have to. You're walking because that's your race day
That's
strategy.
the plan.
Think that
Yeah.
that's a huge difference. And on a day like yesterday, even more so, that run walk is going to help so much with, keeping your heart rate down and making you feel a little bit cooler versus trying to push farther than maybe you need to, and it's not really benefiting you.
Right. And with that run walk, it also opens up the time and the pace to be able to eat. So, which is super helpful too in a hot race or any race really. But for the start of Hennepin, it's like, okay, now I've got a walk break. So there's no excuse that I'm not getting in the calories. Like, I've got to be using it there.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things I was saying, is make sure you're drinking and eating on the walk. It gives you a little chance
Yeah.
to take that in, a little easier on the stomach, and then
Yeah.
it gives you something to focus on. So you're not focusing on.
Exactly. I was just talking to one of my athletes who ran the 50, and she was like, I did the 4-1 run, 4-minute run, 1-minute walk. I did it for hours. and then I did it for some more hours, and then I did it for more hours. I was like, good, you did the plan. Good job.
And it's, it's a long day of beeping and going back and forth. But so yesterday, a
It's
little off
helpful.
topic, but I have an athlete that's training for Tunnel Hill 50, and she's also using a run walk. So I joined her on some of her long run yesterday and did some of the run walk with her. And it was a great way for me to get back out there and get in a long run after my first long run post PRP, and an easy
Yeah.
kind of way to do it with a little less impact. So, and it was fun
Yeah.
to be able to hang out with my athletes and talk a little
Wonderful.
nutrition and
Yeah, do it all at the same time. That's
right.
great. So let's talk a little bit about the aspect of a crew at Hennepin or any race. I know you were communicating with crews all day yesterday, and they were spouses, correct?
Yeah, yep, both of them were spouses.
All right, so let's talk about choosing a crew and kind of your experience with your husband
Yep.
or some of your athletes you coach as well.
Yep, for sure. So for me, I really like the crew to, know things up front so that when they're going into this race, they know what your expectations are. I talk a lot about with athletes too that, we get decision fatigue, especially deep into
Yeah,
ultra. And so trying to talk to them about making sure that you're not being given too many choices because it just becomes overwhelming and then you don't know what you want. Um,
right.
that could turn into, frustration, right? So my rule of thumb is two choices. Give me two choices because if I have a smorgasbord of choices, I'm going to probably have a little meltdown because I just can't. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't decide at that point. So that's one of the things I tell athletes. I also like to keep the crew. I make a spreadsheet that kind of tells people all of the aid stations and all of the of a pace chart so they can kind of get an idea about what time they'll be coming into each aid station so they're prepared for that too. So they have an idea of when to expect that, people coming.
yeah,
Hopefully you don't miss them. And I also, try to talk to the crew or try to tell my athletes to involve the crew with me, get them connected to me. Nothing makes me happier than helping them all day, through a race.
yeah,
I love helping the problem solving and getting to hear what's happening because I'm dying
right.
too, wondering like, how's it going? Are they doing well? And if I
Yeah,
don't hear from people I don't know, so I love I feel like I'm part of it, and
exactly.
and that's the way I can also help them for their next race. By going through the experience that I did yesterday with the two athletes that I did, I'll know where the things we need to really troubleshoot are so that next time we can, make some changes to the plan that we.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's so valuable that you can communicate and like, because like we told our athletes, like reach out or have your crew reach out because I promise we're refreshing this tracker every 2 minutes. Like we're watching anyway. And, I like woke up a couple times last night and I'm still watching this tracker for the 100. And so I don't mind. Please, we've said it before, but it's so nice to connect. And if your coach doesn't want to connect with you during a race, I'd say reconsider your coach because that's your day. That's your day that you've been training for, and they should be available to you as best as they possibly can on your race day.
Just,
And it's also helpful to troubleshoot.
yeah, I think it's a super value to have a coach in your
Yeah,
on race day and to be able
yeah,
to help. Because problem solving is tricky out there, right? And if you
it
have
is.
somebody that's kind of sitting objectively, being able to, with experience, to be able to give you some things to try, I think it's super helpful. And I also like to tell athletes, like, do not, don't drop unless you've talked to me. Like, reach
Yeah,
out so I can help you because maybe we can get you through it. Maybe you're making
yeah,
a decision, but it might be wise to talk to somebody else outside of where you are in your head. And sometimes it's a hard if you have a spouse as a crew, it's hard for them to make that call too because they're
yeah,
making you suffer. And it's hard to watch somebody that you love suffer. And so you just want the suffering
yeah,
to end, so you're like, yeah, maybe
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice to bounce that off of somebody else that, of course, cares about you, but they can also know how hard you've trained and your goals going into this and that you've spoken about it. Choosing a crew can be tough, and some people like that I know, a spouse is like a no-no, like it's too much, like, and that's totally understandable. And you have to know that, like, how your dynamic would work out there.
Yep.
Sometimes a random runner that you just know casually is a great choice because they know, what goes into eating and fueling and
Right.
chafing and all of that. Or sometimes someone that's ran the race is a really good choice, a
Mhm.
really good friend. I think people know like my dad crews me a lot. And one thing like people always ask me too, they're like, how does he see you suffer? Like does he ever tell you to quit or anything? Shockingly, no. Like he's never once mentioned like, oh, you should probably quit.
You're like, Dad,
But
I should probably quit, but no, he just like,
I know, yeah, he won't. Yeah. But he was carrying me at the keys and he actually cut open my shoes. He's the one that cut my shoes open. So he didn't say quit. Like he was like, I'll just cut them open for you and you can get back out there. But that's really valuable. So you have to know yourself too. Like I think I've mentioned too, sometimes for some reason in my mind, there's times when I'm really struggling where I don't mind somebody telling me on a crew or whatever, it's okay if you quit. Because then in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's okay, but I'm not going to choose that.
yeah,
Like, just like allowing yourself to feel that for a moment and knowing, okay, I'm okay if that happens, but I'm going to continue to go. So
yeah.
there's so many dynamics on like what what works best for you and what works for your crew and you kind of have to know if you get grumpy or that kind of thing, if your spouse can handle that.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I like to, usually spouses know a little bit more about what pushes buttons and what doesn't versus people
Right,
not as familiar with. So I think it's really smart to tell your crew, like, I like a cheerleader, I don't like a cheerleader. I want somebody to be tough on me, I don't want somebody to be tough on me. And with the caveat that it may change mid-race. You know,
right.
we're kind of like toddlers out there, right? We're just like
Yes.
our emotions are all over the place. And while you
Yep.
might normally, I mean, I have had this happen, and my one of my friends will never let me live this down, that I run with all the time, and we talk all the time for miles and miles of long runs. But at a race, had to ask her
Yeah.
to just be quiet because it was I can't do this. So yeah,
Yeah.
just never know what might happen during that race. And so I guess, talking to the crew a little bit about adaptability, I think is going to be helpful in getting you through this
Yeah.
too. And then also like what are your times that you want to stop? Like is there like no limits, or is there a point that you would be okay with stopping? I think it's a good conversation to have because
Yeah.
being a crew chief I believe is harder than stepping on the line and running the 100 myself, because you're responsible
Yeah.
for somebody and helping make decisions for an entire
Right.
day. That's another thing I think I should mention too is I tried to remind both of my athletes to make sure that they had food for their spouses because you
Right.
get there in a point-to-point race and you're just chasing to the next aid station. You might not have a place to stop and get food, and
No.
you need to take care of yourself too as the crew. So like make sure
Yeah.
you get their snacks.
Yeah. You can almost guarantee that your runner's going to be a little crabby. You don't want the crew to be crabby too from not eating. Yeah, it's and again, like things just change. Like I'm not a talker when I run, like you were saying, but I always tell my crew, I'm like, you can talk my ear off. I'm just not going to answer you, but I appreciate that, like the like talking. Just know that I'm not going to answer you.
Yep.
It's so fun to just hear like everyone's preferences or things like that. But I think, yeah, having a conversation before you go in of like, where is your breaking point? What kind of are your preferences? What you know doesn't work for you. Like, there's certain things that I know just won't work for me. I don't mind tough love, but other people might have a meltdown.
Right. Exactly.
But I kind of don't like to be coddled either. So like that might send me into a meltdown. Like you kind of have to know. But having someone really close to you is good because they know kind of where your tipping point is naturally, and they can probably see that. But also with the caveat that what happens out there is not personal. Like you've just got to put it to the side and do your best.
Yeah. So I had another kind of different twist to my athletes racing. So they actually didn't know each other, but I had connected them a while back when they live in different states, but they're sort of near each other. So connected that they were both running the 50 at Hennepin. And so they've been kind of communicating back and forth and decided they were pretty close to the same pace so that maybe they would do this together. And they were pretty excited about that. But also, so we had a team meeting with all of us
Yeah,
talking about it. But then also, I mean, I reminded them, especially the day before the race, that, like you need to run your own race. And
yeah,
it's very hard to stick together in these really long
yeah,
races because we have different highs and lows. And of course, you wouldn't want to impact the other person by you having a low and then being high. They need to keep going. We
Right.
can't stay together. But they did finish less than a minute apart, and they just sort of
That's
were
amazing.
together at points, but leapfrogging each other throughout the day, which was kind of nice for camaraderie,
Yeah.
I think. And then they picked up another Ornery Mule runner along the way that's comes to a lot of the races, and so they all finished really close together. So it all worked out, but sometimes it doesn't, right? And sometimes one person
Right.
drop or one person starts slowing down or one person starts speeding up, and you can't always do that together, but it was kind of fun that they were able to finish somewhat near each other.
That is so special. Like having it almost is like a safety net there, knowing there's someone that you know, first of all, especially going to another state, but someone that you can kind of bounce off of and know that you're kind of in this together is really cool. And then sometimes it happens accidentally where like you'll be running a race and you cannot get away from somebody no matter how hard you try.
Exactly.
So you might as well talk to them for a minute. Like you might as well at least give them your name and like encourage them for a minute. But especially in these courses that the elevation doesn't vary. So like the pace is hard to get off of. Like it's just that's your pace.
Yes.
So it's kind of nice to have somebody out there that you've met or that you know or that you can make friends with. I always do tell my athletes too, like if you're up for it, don't be afraid to talk to the people around you, but run your own race. Make a friend, but if they go off, let them.
Yeah.
Like if you need to go off, let them. But if you're somebody that really gets in your head and doesn't like to be a solo runner, like I kind of thrive in that solo space, but a lot of people are social runners and they want to make friends and they want to so kind of feel out your crowd. A lot of people are like that and want to be talkative as well, which is nice for some people.
For sure. So, now we're on the day after, right? And so again, my coaching duties continue because now I'm fielding the questions of like recovery or right
Yeah,
after the race, like, a little bit of panic. I feel really bad. And, like, am I okay?
yeah,
And there are times,
yeah,
that you have to like really assess, are they okay? And I was a little concerned, it was a really hot day. There was a risk of dehydration. There's always a risk of, some hypernatremia or hyponatremia. There's risks out there, right? Doesn't happen very often, but you do want to watch those
right,
signs closely when you're finished. And
yeah,
so I'm, at that point giving some strategies that are going to help with recovery. For me, my favorite thing is an Epsom salt soak right after a race.
yeah,
Magic for me. Always remind people to take an electrolyte drink there with them because they're going to be dehydrated already, and so they need to keep.
yeah.
But I think that's a huge thing. I always like to prop my legs at night, the night of a race, when I sleep,
Um,
just to kind of keep things flowing. That
yeah,
helps me a lot. And just also reminding that we need to replenish our body, right? We've just probably really dehydrated ourselves. We need to keep the fluids coming in too, so that we can
absolutely.
do, balance.
Yeah, and absolutely, and kind of reminding the athlete too that what they just did, like you're not going to feel great after, but definitely take inventory. And I think if it's their first time doing something like this, what's really shocking is the lack of sleep that you get the first night for most people.
You're so tired, but you can't sleep.
Yeah, so there's things that you can do, of course, like the Epsom salt bath, propping your legs up. For me, my feet just get like, it's almost like they go numb during the race, and then after the blood starts going back to them.
Yep.
And I get the most restless feet and painful feet.
Okay.
So propping them up, the Epsom really helps, or magnesium really helps. But just know that you might not get the best sleep that first night. Don't panic. Don't get too frustrated. Just even laying down is restful. And then that second night is usually where it happens.
Right. Yep.
But that's kind of what's most shocking to me. Every time I run a race or I'm really tired, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get such good sleep. And it's like, no, you're not. Like your body goes into this like feverish, hot feeling. Like it's freaking out. It's like, what did you just do to me?
Yes. Glad you mentioned that feverish because I often get that, I do will run a little fever. And I
Yeah,
remember the first time I kind of was a little panicked because I didn't really know what was happening. And I often
yeah,
will develop a cough. I'll wake up in the
yeah,
night really coughing and I think I'm getting really sick. And then by morning,
yeah.
I'm done and
It's
I'm
gone.
perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
trying to get us back to homeostasis, right? Like where
Exactly.
we've ripped our muscles to shreds and we've worked our lungs and everything.
Yeah.
for hours, and now it's like, what the heck? I got a lot of repair work to do. So then that
Exactly.
comes in the piece that's really important right now is making sure you're really eating too. Like, I
Yeah.
was listening to a podcast with David Roche and talking about the eating piece, and just as important now post race to be eating as it is on your hard workout days when you're training, getting ready for the race, right? Because your body is in super repair mode right now. So you really need to make sure you're fueling it with good things, right? Making sure you're getting in a lot of protein and some complex carbs and, giving your body what it needs to repair it.
Exactly. That's such good advice, and that's going to definitely expedite the healing process of everything. Don't, just go to McDonald's the next day. Like choose something good that your body's going to appreciate. That's funny you mentioned the cough. I call it my runner's cough. I get it every single time. And sometimes it even starts during the race. You're like, oh, what a time to get sick. But it's just I don't know, we need to talk to a doctor on what is this. But I always get the cough, the congestion.
Yep.
It's kind of torturous that first 24 hours post race. But if you're expecting it, you're kind of like, okay, here it is. But then anything that feels weird, like you want to monitor, of course, your urine,
Yes.
make sure that you're staying hydrated. Sometimes your body doesn't use the liquid properly that you're giving to it because it's not used to it from what you put it through, but make sure you're staying hydrated, and all of those things is super important. And then, of course, if you have anything that you're majorly concerned about, definitely get it checked out.
Exactly. And that was my advice yesterday. Like if things start to feel worse, you might want to keep
Yeah,
being checked out. It's not going to hurt to go to the ER if you need to and
yeah,
just have them do a check, and it may be just an IV that you need. But if
right,
you're in a position where, you're worried about it, then it's
yeah.
better to err on the side of caution, and then
Absolutely. It's so funny too. Like anytime I've ever gone to the doctor for a running related thing, it's so normal to us. It's like you kind of breeze through the story. You're like, oh yeah, I just ran 50 or 100 miles and like I'm just not feeling. They're like, wait, what?
you said that like it's like everyday occurrence.
Like, yeah, I probably just need an IV or something. Like, let's figure this out. And they're like, wait, what did you just do to yourself? It's like, oh well. But it's, yeah, definitely, just be in monitoring. If you're someone that likes to take notes, this is a good time to take notes on how you're feeling post.
Right.
At least mental notes so you can share with your coach or share with people around you, and so that you can expect it the next time. Because sometimes we forget, like we're so good at forgetting pain, so
Mhm.
we forget what those post 24 hours look like after a race, and then the next time you do it, it's like, oh, I remember
Right.
my feet were on fire. Like,
Yes. Yes.
my hips always feel like they're about to snap in half for like 6 hours post 100. Yeah, just weird things start to happen. So it's nice to have like a journal of like, okay, check, that's normal.
So we talked a little bit about communicating with athletes, communicating with crew during a race. So tell me, like, what kind of communication do you like with your athletes? How do you typically communicate with them? What works best for you as a coach?
For me, what works best as a coach is text because we're all glued to our phones. And of course, I have my email that goes directly to my phone, but it's a little bit longer of a response time. Like, if I'm looking at a text message, I'm like, okay, there it is. I can respond to it. For me, that works best. It's harder for me to take a phone call on a dime. Like, I have a normal job too. So text works best. Email is always okay if it's not pressing, but if you've got an immediate question for me, text me. I like that.
Mhm. So, and what about, we use the run for us as coaches, we use the platform Run DNA. And so is places in there for your athlete to fill things out, like rate of perceived exertion, a note after the run to kind of talk about how they're feeling. What
Yeah.
kinds of things do you like as far as using the app?
Yeah, I love using the app, especially if it's just notes about the run that's like not injury related or anything really pressing. I always tell my athletes, like, if anything was, even if it's normal, right? Normal. Like, I want to see all these notes. And I'll probably respond to, if there's a question, of course, but if there's not a question, I'll probably respond to 3 to 5 of them a week just to kind of like make a note. But I read every single one of them. If there's a question, again, I say text me or send me an email. But I like to read those notes and like take that into the next week. So I love, even if you had a great run and it felt normal, tell me that. At least so I know.
Same for me. I love to get feedback. I feel like the more I'm in tune with what's going on with my athlete, and maybe not even just the running piece, sometimes it's life. It's nice to be able to
Yeah.
going on because you know everything's a stressor, right? So there's training stress, there's life stress, there's work stress. We want to make sure we're balancing everything. So I really like to know that. And also for me, text is super quick, super easy, and I'm
Yeah.
usually respond almost immediately because I see it and I don't want to miss it. You know, so
Yeah.
I'm responding. Uh Using the app, so when athletes fill out, I love having the rate of perceived exertion filled out because
Yeah.
it's really nice for me to see how they're feeling when I'm looking at pace and their heart rate and looking at other data, so I can see how that compares, so I
Yeah.
know, okay, so they think it feels like this. Sometimes that's surprising to me because maybe I'll see a heart rate that's really low and they're rating it a 5 or 6, and then I'm like, you know, why,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's good things. And then I love the notes too, learning about things. I don't always respond to every note, but I'm reading them.
Mhm.
But the one thing that's helpful for me is that if athletes click send to go coach after they write something, because you can either
Yes.
into your journal or send it to the coach. Well, if it gets logged into your journal, I don't get any kind of notification, and I
Yes.
miss those unless I, you know, scroll and through every single piece of everything single person. I might miss some of those things. The other one
Yeah.
to my attention, so I can respond immediately and I know it's there. So I really
Yeah.
like that piece. And I think, you know, again, like you said, if you want immediate attention, texts are just so much quicker even than going through the app because I need to open that up and check everything. So I might miss
Exactly.
that. So I think that that's super helpful. You know, having calls occasionally are great. And sometimes I like that when there's a lot of questions, it's a little bit
Yeah.
easier to say, hey, are you available for a phone call or can we schedule a phone call so that we can kind of clear things up versus trying to go back and forth with text and it might be starting to get confusing as well. So, but I feel like the more in contact I am with people and seeing like what's going on, the better I can support athletes. And it's okay. Everybody has a different kind of style, right, as an athlete. But once I don't hear from as much, I don't feel like I'm as helpful for them because I don't feel like I'm
Yeah.
supporting them as much. But maybe but I think some people are okay with that. They don't need that constant contact. So, you know, I always say when we get new athletes, you're going to get a minimum of a once a week contact, but you're going to get more as
Mhm.
needed. And, you know, and it just depends on each of my athletes. Some athletes I hear from quite frequently throughout the week. Some athletes I hear from every other week. You know, I mean, I don't hear from them quite
Yeah.
frequently, but I always check in, even if I don't hear with somebody each week, just to make sure, you know, how things are going and, you know, and if they need any kind of changes with their schedules. That's something that I'm more than happy to do is move things around. I would almost prefer to move it myself than sometimes athletes moving it for themselves, just because I want to make sure it makes sense how we're, you know, programming.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always surprised when I see something's moved. And I'm like, oh wait, that's not where I put that.
Sometimes it confuses me. I'm like, did I do
Yeah,
that? I don't remember
I was
doing.
like, I would never do that. But yeah, it's definitely helpful, and we always reiterate, but just know that if you're working with either of us, we want to hear from you. I'm more stressed when I don't hear from you, so please, please always reach out. And then of course, yeah, once a week at minimum. But again, like I really like to try and be more than that. Like we're here to help, so don't try and do this on your own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have some people that follow every single run by the book, feel good, and then I have to say like, "Hey, you doing good?"
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yep.
which
Yep.
is fine. I operate similar to that, but we are here to help. So please reach out.
But looks like I just lost Coach Lindsay. We'll wait for a second and maybe she'll come back. Here we go. I'm going to pop her back in. So we
I
just,
got disconnected for a minute, but yeah, as we were saying, please use your coach if you've got a coach, or use the support system. We're always here to help.
yes, for sure, for sure. We love being supportive, and I think probably Lindsay and I are very quick to respond, you know. So
Yes,
so if you need something, we're usually right here. Now, there's sometimes that we're doing something that we might have a little bit of a pause before we're able to respond, but for the most part, it's pretty immediate.
yeah. The only time my normal job, but if I'm on a run where there's just no reception, I see it and I'm like, I can't respond. I don't have any reception.
Often at runs when I'm answering or, you know, doing something, but
Yeah,
but I
but
don't.
that's yeah. And again, we get more stress when we don't hear from you. So for us specifically, please always reach out.
Right, right. Oh,
Well,
okay.
awesome.
Anything else we need to add?
I think that's good, and I'm sure next is Lily's racing next weekend, correct?
Yep,
Okay, so we'll definitely have to get her back on and kind
yep,
of hear her experience and wrap up the series on Lily. But until then, yeah, excited to see what's next for everybody and enjoy this weather shift. It's starting to get a little cooler in LA, so hopefully
yep.
it'll start happening in the Midwest too.
Yes, it is. It's coming. The fall is coming. Yay.
Is this your real background
Yeah, the
currently?
backyard.
It's so beautiful, and you can tell fall is coming there.
Coming.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, and if you like us, like our information and share it and get it out there so we can help more people. All
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys.
right, bye.
Bye.